The Honorable Topham will deliver his maiden speech.
Madam Speaker, Vladimir Putin has said many questionable things, but you can't disagree with the following statement. The unjustified swelling of the budgetary deficit and the accumulation of public debt are just as destructive as adventurous stock jobbing. This DORA bill is in the end all about the principle of debt. We must not forget that our country is facing a total revised deficit of 219 billion rand. This means we are getting into more debt. 10 years ago, we had a debt to GDP ratio of 22%. We're now looking at close on 47%. Debt in itself is not a bad thing, as long as it provides for a growing economy and to create jobs. But unfortunately, this is not happening. This is because we have our principles confused, or we do not have principles. Margaret Thatcher said that we will stand on principle or we will not stand at all. And based on the figures, we are in trouble. Thus, I thought it appropriate that I share a story with you, a story about the principles of the birds and the bees, specifically about geese. Most of us can relate to the story, as almost everybody has a desire to have a little patch of land to farm and call our own.
Point of order.
Yes, Honourable Steenhuisen, what's the point of
Madam
order?
Speaker, as you know, this is a maiden speech. It's generally respected. Perhaps you would like to share with the Honourable Minister Zulu the parliamentary niceties relating to maiden speeches.
The parliamentary niceties are about the fact that a maiden speech itself must be as uncontroversial as possible, but the House must respect a maiden speech in the way they deal with it and respond to it. Honourable Member, please proceed.
Thank you. I have not been to Nakandla, but I think that the President will also relate to the story, as I believe that he has a goose or two on his little patch of land. Like George Orwell's Animal Farm, the farm known as South Africa had a change of management a few years ago. Management by the people, for the people, where all the pigs are equal. And like most uprisings, timing is very important. Unfortunately, this change happened at a very important time in history, when the tides were rising and when there was a very positive story being told to the international communities about our cool country. And everybody was bending over backwards to help us. As a result, the farm became quite productive. The golden years of our new economy arrived, but like all good stories, there's a twist in the tale. Unfortunately, farming is tough. It is very hard. If you don't wake up every day, check the fences and feed the animals and eradicate predators, you're soon going to have a farm which is in trouble. And our farm primarily farmed geese. We produce lots of golden eggs and lots of little baby geese or goslings, so I know what they are, but I won't refer to them again. Times were good, so we didn't pay much attention to the snake that every now and then stole a golden egg or a little gosling and charred it up every now and then. We didn't pay too much attention to them. And the farmers were happy, they were producing. The snakes were happy, they were breeding and they were eating. But sooner or later, the minimal effort of the snakes passed the efforts, the hard-working efforts of the farmers, and that's when the trouble started. The principle of hard work was replaced with the principle that corruption is okay to pay off old debts and favours. By the time the farmers realised that they lived in a snake den, they couldn't move without getting bitten by a snake. So they retreated to the cities and left the farm to the snakes. The snakes thrived for a while, eating whatever they could find, and eventually they turned on each other when there was nothing left. And they started to attack each other. The farmers got hungry in the cities, longing for their farms, so they came back with big sticks and started looking for retributions. The snakes, being very clever, however, decided to move off to greener pastures, better Arabian lands, because the terrain here had become slightly inhospitable. The farmers demanded vengeance, and so some international organizations who didn't account too correctly for and warn of the growing number of snakes on this farm, they took the fall and blame for the greed of all the snakes. All the while, the king cobra was busy building himself a den in a faraway land, far from the maddening crowd. Now, despite our country being unable to collect 50 billion in revenue this year, the good news is that all these geese are not dead. A few escaped or higher perches in the trees and survived. But as the farmers didn't feed their animals through poor political decisions made over a number of years and neglect, the geese were starved. Fortunately, these geese aren't dead, but they are in need of hospitalization. They are suffering from anorexia. Now, the problem with anorexia is that you can't have babies and lay golden eggs when you've got anorexia. Thus, there are fewer profits for taxes to be collected on. What do we do to stop feeding our geese? Our biggest geese are found in the financial, mining, industrial, and agricultural sectors. Now, we all know a little bit about the birds and the bees. And the fundamental principle is that to have baby geese, we need goose to come together and play with each other. And if you have a lot of goose and no gander, you ain't going to have any baby geese either. Our policies and actions have scared off international ganders. And therefore, we have few productive developments or foreign investments from which to grow our economy. This is not conducive for our geese to play with each other and to have little babies. Our BEE legislation is currently written, makes it impossible for your goose to play with my gander. Once again, no baby geese as a result. Our mining industry has so much red tape and middlemen involved that it's easier for our goose to fly off to Canada in migration than to try and operate in South Africa. Isaac Newton formulated the rules of gravity. And no matter where you live, no matter what your social status is, you cannot avoid the rules of gravity. And unfortunately, in South Africa, we have often found ourselves untouchable by the international laws of money. No matter how many times we say that we are the rainbow nation, that this law does not apply to us, no matter how many times we say it, when we look again, we're going to fall on our faces and we try to ignore this rule of gravity. Rather than allow our sick geese to be administered to by specialists, we fly in quacks to come and fix the problems in our treasury. Now, a quack can't just rebalance the DORA. The money that's meant to go for provincial and local government efforts to fund free education, for instance, is not going to be found by a quack. As a country, our economic future is dependent on us making the right principled decisions concerning how we farm our land. We are not special. We are all just geese and ganders, and we all want to produce some golden eggs for our retirement and for the children's future. Don't mess with the principles of the birds and the bees if we want to save our economy from extinction. And a speaker.
The Honorable Gwabaza.